guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video, welcome either way. And this is going to be my absolutely massive June 2021 book Unhaul. Now, I've split this into 3 piles of books, for no reason other than to make the filming a bit easier. And the first pile is books that I've already read. I went through my whole shelf and just decided to take down a couple of books that I liked at the time, but I don't see myself ever rereading. I annoy myself with stuff like this because I'm like, when I moved, did I really have to drive all of these books down here only to get rid of them once I got here? But oh well. So the first one is something that I absolutely enjoyed and I read very recently, which is No More Plastic. Now, I would highly recommend this book to anyone, but now that I have read this, I want to pass it on so that it can continue to sort of, people can continue to benefit from it. I think that it's not going to do anything else just sitting on my shelf. By the way, sorry if I'm sweaty. It's so hot in England today. I even thought it was going to be nicer today because of the fact that it's cloudier. It's so hot and I'm so sweaty. But anyway, No More Plastic. Really enjoyed this. Really recommend. Again, this isn't a wrap up, so why am I talking about this? But I'm not going to read it again, and I think it would do someone a lot of good. So, bye. The next one I've got is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, which again I really enjoyed. But again, this is another case of I think this could do a lot more good in the hands of someone who is not me. This book follows a trans main character. I think I'm going to donate it to Gaze the Word, and so someone else can read it and hopefully see themselves in it, because I just think this was very nice. Same sort of thing with Final Draft by Riley Redgate. Again, I really enjoyed this. It has a lesbian main character. I think she's a lesbian, but there's a female-female romance at the heart of this. But again, I think that someone could really benefit from reading this, so I'm going to donate this one as well. Another one that I enjoyed while I read, but I don't really intend to finish the series. I just sort of had them all, so I was like, I'll read them eventually. But with, like, I own 150 unread books. I don't want to keep books. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll eventually finish that because I have the whole series. I want to actually be excited about what I read, so I'm getting rid of this one. This one I have actually read, but I do own the rest of them. This one is The Declaration by Gemma Malley. I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name, sorry. Now, this book is really interesting. My English teacher recommended it to me years and years ago. I didn't end up reading it until many years after she had first recommended it to me. And I would sort of put this in the same sort of scale as The Handmaid's Tale. I think that I can draw a lot of parallels between those two books, even though the plot is very different. But I think that I would recommend this to someone who is too young for The Handmaid's Tale, but I think that it spreads a lot of the same messages. So I did find this very interesting, but I'm going to get rid of it. The next one in this category is A Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funke. I really, really loved this, but I think I'm too old for it now. I don't see myself rereading it, and I don't particularly like this cover. I think I might repurchase this if I found a really, really lovely cover of it. But I really loved this and I would really recommend, but I don't want to keep it anymore because it takes up substantial space on my red shelf. And the last one is Out of the Blue by Sophie Cameron. Again, really enjoyed this one, but I think that it would do some good in someone else's hand. It's a really sort of nice copy of the book. It is also signed. And yeah, this one is following a either lesbian or bisexual main character, and her love interest has, what illness was it? I think it was MS. Yeah, I think I'll have to check that out for you, but I would highly recommend this, but I think that I'm getting too old for it now, and I think I'm just going to pass this on to someone else. Oh, also in that category, I think I have, what's the book called? Another book about reducing plastic, which I passed on to a friend of mine, so that also counts in that final category, because I read it and really enjoyed it, but I don't want to keep it. I want to spread it around and have it continue to do good in the world. So the next category is books that I DNF'd. Now, a lot of these books are books I read in a recent try chapter tag that I decided not to continue in, but some of them I did just start and then decide not to finish throughout the month, so I thought I'd go through them with you now. The next one is not Glass Sword, or this is the only book of this series I do own. The first book is Red Queen, I think Red Queen, and it's by Victoria Aveyard. Now, oh yeah, best-selling author of Red Queen. Now, I bought this to try it out. I bought this one because I saw it in a charity shop. I don't know if the price is still on it, but I wouldn't have paid more than about 99p for this. No, and it's in pretty good condition. But yeah, so I got the audiobook of Red Queen just to try it out, and it was just, it felt like the Hunger Games. It felt like a fantasy version of the Hunger Games, basically. And it felt like there was I looked up and some reviews and saw that there was a love triangle, and I'm just so done with that particular trope. I think that's what sort of pushed me over the edge in terms of actually getting rid of the books that I own of this series, and the fact that I don't really intend to finish Red Queen either, so I DNF'd Red Queen. I'm also unhauling a book that was a gift from a friend, which is Echoes by Laura Tisdale. I've never seen this anywhere. I've never seen it sort of recommended at all, and I ended up trying this, and I think it is a very decently written book. I think it's very good, but I looked at some more into the synopsis because it doesn't give that much away from the back of the book, but when I looked up some reviews, it does have some things that I would be triggered by, so I've decided not to continue with this one, and I'm unhauling it. The next one I'm unhauling is A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams, the play version. Now, I think that I would still really enjoy watching this stage, but I think this is just a case of, I think that the play reading experience doesn't live up to seeing it on the stage, so I'm going to get rid of this one as well. So the next one my mum gave to me, which was A Tiny Bit Marvellous by Dawn French. I really enjoyed sort of the tone of this. I thought this was really nice. I ended up getting the audiobook from my library and trying it out, and it is narrated by Dawn French herself, and I just love the sound of her voice. I love what she's been in. I'm a big fan of Vicar of Dibley. But yeah, the story itself is what made me DNF this. I think that if you like the sort of books that have caricatures instead of characters, I think that you would really enjoy this. I don't tend to, and so this is a case of, it's just not the sort of book that I'd normally pick up. I picked it up for the author, but I don't think I'm going to finish this, so it's leaving my collection. So this is another book that I picked up for its LGBT themes, and I started reading this and I was so bored. The main character is just a boring person to read about. That may be the point, but I couldn't make a chapter into this. It was so dull. So that's going as well. The next one I'm getting rid of is Pax by Sarah Pennypacker. I wonder if that's her real last name. Anyway, I've seen this everywhere, so I just decided to pick it up and give it a go. And I DNF this, not because I don't think it's very good. I do think it's a good book, and I would highly recommend this to people. It's a book about a boy and his fox who are separated in the background of World War I? World War II? Anyway, there's a war going on and they're separated. And the problem that I had with this is because that the boy character has anxiety, and I think that it was written in such a realistic way that the reading experience was making me anxious. So I decided to put this one down. Not for me, but I would highly recommend this one if you're interested in reading it. The next one is a graphic novel, and it is Username Evie by Jo Sugg. I'm not sure how to say the last name. I had purchased another of these books, and because it doesn't say the series number on the spine, I hadn't realised I hadn't picked up volume 1, so I found this in a charity shop. I wonder if it tells me how much I paid for it. £3.49, so pretty expensive from a charity shop, but I got it from Oxfam, and Oxfam do tend to price up their books. And yeah, I think I gave this one a good shot. I got to about halfway, I think that the art style is lovely. It's a bit more sort of traditional comic than I would usually go. Here's a sort of page example. I did think the art style was nice, but I think that the story just was not really grabbing me. I think that it's a sort of thing that will develop as the series goes on, but yeah, I just don't see myself finishing this out, so I'm hauling this one as well. So this book I got from the charity shop basically because I thought it was quite a fun concept. It's a series where Oscar Wilde and Arthur Conan Doyle sort of meet up and solve mysteries together. It's called Oscar Wilde and the Vatican Murders. I started reading this and I was just like, this is so ridiculous. I think that both of the authors that it is referencing are very witty and clever authors, and I don't think that this book represents that in a very good way, so yeah, I'm not going to finish this. And the last book that, again, was pretty much just a copy of The Hunger Games, you'll hear more about that in my wrap-up, is Revel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. This cover is absolutely stunning. It's so gorgeous, and I got about a quarter of the way through maybe, but replace the bow from The Hunger Games with a gun and you basically have the plot of this. So I would be interested to check out more by this author if she comes up with a more original idea, but this was just far too close to The Hunger Games for me to really enjoy it. Also, another book with a love triangle, and I'm just so sick of reading about that, so bye. And the next 4 are all books that I started and decided that I wasn't going to keep anymore in my tried chapter tag, so I won't go through each of them individually, and I'm glad to be getting rid of some chunky books because these take up substantial shelf space. So I'm getting rid of Shadows on the Moon by Zoe Marriott, Dragon's Blood by Todd McCaffrey, the Dragon's Blood trilogy, and Prince of Thorns. So the penultimate category are books that are in some way connected to one of the books that I've decided to get rid of. You'll see what I mean in a second. So the first one is Username Uprising, which is the sequel to Username Evie, and I had bought this one by accident thinking it was the first book in the series because they didn't put the series number on the spine, which I really hate in book design. It's a really big pet peeve of mine. And yeah, so I didn't like the first book. I'm not going to keep the first book, so I'm getting rid of this one as well. Another sequel to Red Queen, or prequel I should say, is Cruel Crown. I think this is a series of stories set in the world, and yeah, so getting rid of this one as well. So I mentioned that I was getting rid of Wolf Brother and that I'd been hanging on to it because I was like, I'll read the rest of the series eventually. I'm not interested in reading them. I owned them. I probably was interested in one at one point, but I've owned these for at least 3 years, if not a lot more than that. So I am going to donate these ones as well. And in the same vein, I'm going to be donating all of the rest of the Dan Shan books that I own, and Traitor to the Throne, which was the second book in that series as well, which again I'm sad of because it's such a gorgeous cover, but I didn't like what's inside, so getting rid of these. And the last category of books that I'm getting rid of is books that I just looked through my shelves and I was like, realistically, being realistic, what am I actually interested in? These may be books that at some point I go out of my way to pick up in the future, but I do have the means to repurchase them if that's the case. I could always borrow them from the library if I want to give them a try later. But even after removing all of these, I still have over 150 physical unread books, and it would take me at least a year to get through all of them. So these were just ones that I'm really not interested in and I don't see myself picking up anytime soon. So the first one is The Little Old Lady Who Broke All the Rules by Katharina... Oh dear. I'm not going to try pronouncing this last name, I don't want to mangle it. So I got this from my dad, mainly because... Let me just get the other book. So he's a massive fan of Jonas Unison, who writes in a very similar style to this person. I think this came out after a lot of his books, and I think that these have benefited from the popularity of his books. So they have remarkably similar cover artist. I tried for ages and I could not find who designed the covers for each of these books, but they are just so similar, just in how they're styled, how they're marketed. They're both by Swedish authors, and these books, I haven't read this one in particular, but apparently Jonas Unison's books are just solidly hilarious from start to finish, and there's no dip in quality between the books. And my dad gave me this one because of the fact that it's written in the same style but it's not as good, and I was like, if I've got plenty of Unison books to read and these ones aren't, like, this author's books aren't as good, then why should I waste my time on them if I really enjoy these? So this one is going. This one I'm keeping, but yeah, bye. So this book I got to fulfill a buy two get one free, or some sort of money saving thing at the works, who occasionally have really sort of recent book releases for very, very cheap. But most of the books that they get in there are just books that haven't been able to sell elsewhere, and people have overstocked shelves, and so they tend to be incredibly cheap. So I just picked this one up. It's book 2 in a series, which I didn't realise. Even though it does actually say it on the spine, so that's my bad. But yeah, I just looked at this and I was like, was I actually interested in reading this, or did I just buy this to get some money off the books that I was actually interested in buying that day? And I'm not really. I haven't gone out of my way to pick up book 1 in this series, and I've owned this for ages, so clearly not that interested in it, and it's going to go. The next book is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, and this one is a product of, so I pretty much have owned this as well for, now I would have heard of it for about 3 years, but I only got it recently because my mum read it. She didn't like it, but she read it, and I said that I was interested in reading it, which she was very confused about because this is not the sort of book that I normally pick up. And the reason why I wanted to give it a go is because when I first started consuming booktube content, the books that I knew about that were good were what was being recommended by the first few booktubers that I started watching. This was one of the books that I saw pretty much only one person talk about, but they made it sound so good that I wanted to pick it up. And yeah, from the style of books I know I enjoy now, and me knowing my tastes a lot better than I did 3 years ago, nothing about this interests me. So I'm going to pass this on and see if anyone else would like it. So the next 4 are all part of the same series by Philip Pullman. We've got The Tin Princess, Ruby in the Smoke, The Tiger in the Well, and The Shadow in the North. And I picked up Ruby in the Smoke years and years and years ago, and I started it, didn't really get on with it, and just put it back on my shelf and forgot about it. And then I saw these 3 in another charity shop years and years later, so I was like, oh, I owned that, now I own the whole series. But I didn't like this one, and I haven't picked these up in the years that I've owned them. I'm not interested in reading them, and I'm still incredibly interested to read his Dark Materials by the same author, so there's no reason for me to hang on to these. I think they're for a younger audience than his Dark Materials are, so I'm just going to unhaul these. And the next 4, oh, there's one I should have put in the DNF pile. But the next 4 are all books that I picked up or acquired because of the fact that they had LGBT themes. And I think that I'm over the point in my life where I just want to pick up anything with LGBT themes. I do want to sort of narrow it down to things that I think I'm actually going to like and things that are my taste. And so that's these 4. So I've got The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. Now, Sarah Waters writes a lot of female-female romances in her fiction books. The thing is, though, as far as I know, that isn't an own voices thing. I would rather read female-female sort of relationships from an author who is a woman who also likes women. So, also, apart from the fact that there's a female-female relationship in here, or I think there is, nothing about this book appeals to me. And also, my mum read it and really didn't like it either. Not to say that I haven't really loved books my mum hasn't liked, but from what she told me about this story, I don't think I'm going to like it, so I'm going to get rid of this. This I should have had in my DNF section because I did start to read this. I picked this up when I was waiting in line at my laundrette. They have a Not that I always go to a laundrette to dry my clothes. I needed to do my duvet because my dog was sick. Because my dog was sick all over it. But yeah, so I was waiting and it was taking a while, so I picked this up mainly because of the fact that I did recognise the author and it was signed. And I know that this author writes gay fiction, but I should have known better than to pick this up. I'm not a fan of Patrick Gale's writing. I know that a lot of people really do like his stuff, but I just don't get on with it. I've read one full novel and one short story collection from this author, both of which I don't think I gave more than about 3 stars. So I'm gonna donate this and hopefully it'll get read by someone else because it's not getting read here. So the next book is Between the Stops by Sandy Toksvig. Sorry if I've messed up that pronunciation there. Again, my parents my mum I think gave me this book because of the fact that they read it in their book club that she's a part of, and she said the main character's a lesbian and it's autobiographical, so maybe I'll like it. I don't like memoirs, I don't really like autobiographical fiction, I have no interest in this person specifically, so the only reason why I was keeping it is because of the fact that it follows a woman who likes women, so it's not really a good enough reason to keep a book, especially when I have so many others that I would choose over this, so this one's getting donated as well. Oh, it's so hot in here. Anyway, the last book that I'm going to be speaking about is The Love and Lies of Raksana Ali by Sabina Khan. Now, I bought this when there was a load of hype going on about this because of the fact that it was a sort of more diverse lesbian, I think the main character's lesbian, more diverse lesbian story. And when it was first getting a lot of buzz, people were calling it Own Voices. And I've since found out that this is not in fact Own Voices. The author has a daughter who is a lesbian and so wrote this from personal experience. I don't think that's the right way to go with Own Voices. I think that it should be an experience that you have had if you're going to advertise that way. I don't think the author had any say in how that was advertised, so I'm not blaming her, but one, that's a downside to it, and 2, this was recently read by a booktuber who I really, really trust the opinion of, and we tend to have very similar tastes in reading, and I think the thing that really annoyed her about this book would also really annoy me, so I'll put a colour over the screen for when I'm going to be giving spoilers for this book. I don't think it's really spoilers, but the reason why I'm getting rid of this is because of the fact that the main character's parents put her through terrible, terrible, terrible things, and I don't mean just like sending her to school, like they put her through horrid, horrid things, they say horrible things to her, they do horrible things to her, and by the end of the book they are sort of expected to just be forgiven, and they expect forgiveness from the main character, and they think they deserve it for being the parents of the main character just because of the fact that they are her parents. And I really disagree with that. I think that people are not owed forgiveness. People, like, especially if you do very, very terrible things, like, I don't think anyone is given a free path to forgiveness just because of the fact that you're a blood relative. I think that forgiveness is something that you have to earn, and even then it's the choice of the person who is giving out their forgiveness whether or not they actually are going to forgive you, and I think I'm very strong about that, and yeah, I think that this would just really annoy me. After finding that out, I did decide to keep up my shelves thinking maybe I'll read it, maybe I don't. I don't want to go into this thinking that I'm going to hate it, so I'm getting rid of this one too. And there you have it. There are the 43 books I'm getting rid of this month. I'm really happy with that. I've got a lot more space on pretty much all of my bookshelves, and I'm happy that they will hopefully go to good homes and be read by someone who's actually going to love and appreciate them, because I'm certainly not. Anyway, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.